Did you know the City of Charlotte has tools in its Unified Development Ordinance to help preserve the character of your neighborhood or help shape the rapid changes we're seeing as Charlotte grows? These tools are called overlay zoning districts, and we are going to talk about what they are and how they work. But before we get started, there are some fun new terms that you should know. Parcel is a piece of land with specific legal boundaries, also often called a lot. If you own a house, this is the land your house sits on. Each one has a unique parcel identification number, called a PIN, and is searchable on the Mecklenburg County Polaris 3G map and website. Setback: how far a building sits from the property lines on all sides, front, left, right, and rear. Zoning: a set of rules for an area that determines regulations for the uses allowed, placement, spacing, and the size of land and buildings. Rezoning: the process to change the zoning of a parcel or a group of parcels to allow different regulations. Development or infill development: constructing a new building on an empty lot or a lot where a building has been demolished. Now, let's talk a little more about overlay districts in general and how they work. Overlay districts are special zoning districts that create requirements in addition to the rules of the existing zoning district. Although some overlay districts can change land uses, the overlay districts being discussed here do not. A couple of other things to know. None of these overlays can prevent demolition of homes in your neighborhood, nor do they replace the zoning regulations or change uses allowed on the land. Property owners are not required to update or change their properties. The neighborhood character and the residential infill overlays only apply to residential areas, including single-family, duplex, and triplex buildings. They cannot be applied to larger apartment complexes or commercial developments. And lastly, only one overlay can be used at a time. They cannot be combined. All overlays are created through the rezoning process and are formally adopted via City Council vote. The process for putting each in place is different and requires varying levels of community approval and participation. In Charlotte, there are 4 different overlay options: the neighborhood character overlay, the residential infill overlay, and 2 historic district overlays. Let's talk about the neighborhood character overlay for a better understanding of how and why it can be used. Maybe it will be a right fit for your neighborhood. First, the neighborhood character overlay, or NCO, is for areas that were developed at least 25 years ago that have a consistent development pattern and key design features. The streets, lots, and buildings should share common features such as how close the buildings are to the street, how tall the houses are, how close the buildings are to each other, where people park their vehicles, if there are sheds and garages in the backyards, and the presence of large trees. It also requires a minimum of 15 contiguous acres, with 75% of the lots developed. How does it work? With the help of city staff, your neighborhood chooses from a menu of elements that include building coverage and height, setbacks, lot width, surface parking size and location, and tree standards. You can choose all, one, or any combination of elements that ensure they are matched for renovations, additions, and new construction. For example, a neighborhood of cottage-style homes may have an average front yard setback of 36 feet and an average building height of 25 feet. In Neighborhood 1 zoning districts, which apply to most neighborhoods in Charlotte, front setbacks range from 17 feet to 27 feet, and buildings can be up to 48 feet tall. A neighborhood character overlay, or NCO, could establish custom setback and height requirements for new construction to match the existing character of the cottage-style homes. You may want to consider this for your neighborhood when you want to encourage development that is consistent with its existing character, manage rapid growth and change, or create a transition between locally designated historic districts and other residential areas. To see if this overlay can apply to your neighborhood, visit the charlotteudo.org website, where you will find additional resources that go into further detail. And of course, contact information for city staff to help you every step of the way.